Alexander of Macedon by Harold Lamb continues. Roxana. To Anaxarchus, the sophist may have said, Alexandros only seems to be, but is, one of the bravest of men, of kings, the most kingly of commanders, one of the most worthy. Anaxarchus admitted that only after death were divine honors paid to a man. In their human lives, Dionysus was a Theban, and Heracles an Argive. After departing from among men, certain it is that Alexandros will be honored as a god, and sacrifice made to his image. Would it not be more just to honor him so, while he's still alive? Well, if they know it's not true, it's not helping matters to do that when he's alive. If one of us came forward and seated himself on Alexandros' throne, would he be pleased by that? Never. The Greek cried in horror. That man would be slain out of hand for his presumption. And in what manner would these entities treat Alexandros if he were immortal, should raise himself to divine honor? To this, Anaxarchus made no response, but it was whispered in the camps afterward that Callisthenes had said the king might be slain for his presumption in appearing to be a god. Naturally, the Macedonian veterans heard the opinions of Callisthenes thankfully and supported him, for this had become, more than any matter, a philosophic opinion. The Macedonians, who were not too analytical, beheld Alexandros departing from old customs, apparently being won over to Oriental ways. By so doing, they feared he might be changing his nature, and might become, in very fact, a lord of Asia, heedless of his old clans and countrymen. Their anger arose out of their devotion to him. When he tried the experiment one evening of combining ceremonies, the Macedonian embrace at greeting and the Persian prostration, it had unhappy consequences. They were drinking toasts, each man coming forward to salute the king before drinking. Trying to follow the example of the Orientals, the Macedonian officers bowed in silence, and then stepped forward to kiss Alexander's face. As Callisthenes stepped forward, Alexandros was taking to Hephaestion, and did not notice him. A companion watching touched the king's arm. The sophist, he said, did not make prostration before coming to you. Alexandros glanced quickly at the silent company, and merely motioned Callisthenes away without greeting him. The conspiracy charge proved more serious. Alexandros had made a real effort to combine the education of Oriental and Macedonian boys. Some 50,000 Eastern youngsters now received training under army teachers, especially in the Greek language and use of weapons. The only large group of Macedonian boys were the esquires or cadets, or sons of noblemen, who attended upon the person of the king in his tent, especially at night, and having charge of the hunting implements. In consequence, these boys who came and went within the agema, or military guard, had convenient access to weapons. Their loyalty had never been questioned. The first hint of a conspiracy was given by an officer who had one of the cadets for a lover, and it reached Ptolemy's ears. The rumor had it that some of the boys were angered because Alexandros had spoken, including Persian youths, in their special training, that they planned to assassinate the king. At night, when they were alone with him in the pavilion, one of the youths, Laus, had been studying philosophy with Callisthenes, and so had observed often in talk with him. But the Lemma reported the talk to Alexandros, who turned the boy over to a council of companions for judgment. In this case, judgment took the form of torture on the rack. 2 or 3 boys confessed by talking about killing the king. Hermolaus, expecting that they grieved over the deaths of Parmenio and Philotas and Clytus, and the putting on of the oriental dress and the prostration. They had planned nothing, nor did they admit that Callisthenes had any part in their actions. They were killed by the officers, and Callisthenes put in chains. One account has it that he was kept under guard and died later. Another says that he was hanged. Alexandros wrote to Antipater in Macedon that the boys had been stoned to death by the companion officers, but that he himself would attend to Callisthenes and those who sent him out. After the death of the boys, the ceremony of prostration was abandoned. Callisthenes might have been thrown into chains at the city of Bactria in that early spring of 327. Certain it is that Alexandros hurried on through his Parapenisatis, burning the excess baggage, as had been related. He seems to be anxious to escape from accursed ground, and this time he did not bother to take omens or hold even the semblance of a council, delaying only to select a site for a new base, and easternmost Alexandria. When he reached the Kabul River and the eastern caravan route, he drove the armies on. Action dispelled the miasma of doubt. Isn't that when you kind of suffocate? Had an experience like that with a medication once. And I've had, and with a moldy room, it's kind of, either way, it's not a way that you would want to die. It's like the air is killing you, or like the air itself is poisonous, even when that's what you're trying to get. Of doubt, an incipient conspiracy. It gave relief to Alexandros' overtaxed brain. It gave his commanders occupation. Hephaestion and Perdiccas, a politician and a good executive officer, were dispatched along the main caravan route, leading down through the Khyber Pass, the Khmer Pass, to the valley of Indus. The heavier units, the larger engines and wagon trains went with them. By now the army itself had ceased to be Macedonian, although still officered in the main by Macedonians. Iranian nobles made up a new cavalry wing, as distinguished as the companions, who were now armed in splendor with silver shields. Some of the old formations had disappeared. Survivors of fine Cretan bowmen were turned over to Nearchus's new naval unit. The Hypaspists, decimated by long campaigning, had been made into a guard unit attached to headquarters. The Macedonian phalanx remained unchanged. Alexandros dared not to lose this pivot of his army. But mounted men now made up at least half of the army in the eyes of the new Asiatic allies. Only mounted men deserved respect. The warrior caste here formed the cavalry, and only servitors, tribesmen, and hired spearmen consented to trudge along on foot over the vast distances of the eastern marches. Naturally, the Macedonian phalanxmen shared no such opinion of their own worth, and they grumbled at marching on foot, carrying all their weapons and kits in the dust of the Asiatic cavalry. Alexandros tried to minister to their self-esteem by mounting some regiments, christening the remainder foot companions, and granting them the privilege of having their kits carried in carts. Even after leaving some 15,000 at the last Alexandria on the Kabul, the base for the jump-off into India, some 40,000 must have gone on with the commander, accompanied by an unknown total of civilians. In military force, Alexandros now disposed of 3 to 4 times the strength he had at the Granicus, but he commanded an international and not a national army. It was more than a military triumph to have wielded this tremendous force together, and he was leading it on, not to subject, but to conciliate the peoples ahead, the Aryans of the Indus. Already he had been in communication with them, and he knew that they were ready to greet him at the edge of the valley of the Indus with the gifts of supplies and a strange monster beast called the elephant. They had learned much about him during the last years and were prepared to grant him peaceful passage through the land as an overlord of Asia, for Alexandros wanted no more stress of combat such as he had undergone in the last 2.5 years. And moving east this time, he had divided the command, as always, with Ptolemy as his lieutenant and Craterus as his transport officer. He turned northeast, taking with him the most experienced units, like the Agrianians, the horse and foot companions, and engineers with the portable machines suitable for mountain work. In so doing, he headed towards the higher passes, where the Hindako meets the immense ridges of the Himalayas, where no such army could pass, and where they obviously see their human limits.